One of the great stories of the weekend is the question of whether or not the only story of the weekend is really a story. You've got two camps. You've got the camp that says, hey, this looks significant, and then you've got the nothing to see here camp. And we all have something to talk about now because there's a story, even if the story is whether or not it should be a story. And it takes us to Jimmy Garoppolo and the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm going to peel back the curtain on my process here. I'm not going to out my sources, obviously, but as the dust settled on last week and I got comfortable with the idea of 4 days of no show, and I'm looking for stuff to write about, you have time to think, you have time to read some. And I just remembered something was nagging at me over this Jimmy Garoppolo news that came out last week that he had foot surgery. It's like, well, was it some new injury that we don't know about? Well, no, it's the injury that happened back in December against the Dolphins that opened the door for Brock Purdy. Well, wait, didn't he have surgery then? Oh, no, he didn't have surgery then. Well, why didn't he have surgery then? And he's all of a sudden had surgery in March.
It's kind of one of those things you're like, wait, that didn't happen? I kind of thought, I took it for granted too. I was like, wait, it already happened, right? I've been right there with you. One of those you thought was just a given of the situation.
So what happened was, and it's funny, there are certain things that I always remember, certain things that I forget, and I need a little reminder. I need a little prompt. I need a little spark. And I was looking at some of the stories, and I looked at the story we wrote last week after the Athletic reported that the surgery had happened at some point since Jimmy Garoppolo signed his contract with the Raiders. And Miles Simmons, I believe it was, who wrote the story at PFT, made reference to the delayed signing of the Jimmy Garoppolo contract back in March. And it was something that I knew about because I remember thinking, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's a
they
little
sent everybody
weird.
home.
Right.
Everybody's there. Everybody's there. And they sent everybody home and said, come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. And this gets back to the whole conspiracy theory stuff that we talked about last week. I wrote about it over the weekend. I'll own it.
I saw it.
Because somebody's got to be willing to say in those moments, whoa, something ain't right here.
Yeah, there's some BS
Especially because, Chris, what happens is when that occurred, what happened? The Raiders and Garoppolo himself, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. So let me set the stage. And we got some Garoppolo sound ready to go. Cue it up, control room, because I'm going to throw to it here in a second. See, I'm getting everybody back in the flow.
Oh, look at you. Way to go, coach. Coach them up, baby. Here we go.
They're ready. Okay. So what happens is they got the contract agreed to. The terms of the contract are reported, including an $11.25 million signing bonus for Jimmy Garoppolo, an important term to keep in mind. They got everybody at the facility. All the reporters are there for the press conference. And it's like, what's going on here? And I asked the Raiders, oh, no big deal. Nothing's going on. Nothing to see here. And then when they finally have the press conference the next day, one of the first questions for Jimmy Garoppolo is, hey, what gives? What happened? Why didn't we do this all yesterday? What went on behind the scenes to potentially slow this down? Here's what Jimmy G had to say.
Just going back to yesterday, there was a little bit of a delay. Any light that you could shed on what happened, and was there any kind of worry that this couldn't get over the finish line?
No worry. I mean, it was just honestly just talking, language, things like that. But no, both sides I think knew what we wanted to get done. So it was very collaborative, actually, just us coming together.
Yeah, sure, Jimmy. Sure, Jan. And it's funny, he did the tell like he knew it was coming from the question. It's like, uh-oh, I got to tell a lie here. Let me do this before I start talking because there's going to be assholes like Florio out there who think if I do it while I'm talking, I'm lying. So I'm going to do it before I'm talking.
You conspiracy theorist, you.
Do this. So, and honestly, he used the word honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, look. And it's funny. It's funny because even after, because what happened was, once I remembered that there had been an issue with the delay of the press conference, I thought back to one of the other contracts that was delayed this year, the Marcus Davenport deal.
Yeah.
And it turned out the Davenport deal has a specific language in it, a clause about his shoulder. They're concerned about his shoulder, and that slowed it all down. They had to hammer out the proper terms because he would have failed his physical but for this clause relating to his shoulder. And the Vikings are exempt from any responsibility for anything that may happen to aggravate this shoulder that he had surgery on. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna put my reporter hat on, which I rarely do, messes up my hair, and I'm gonna try to get Jimmy Garoppolo's contract and just pick through it and see if there's anything in there that would shed light on this whole foot thing, because he didn't have foot surgery at the time. He signs with the Raiders, and then he has foot surgery, and now there's this question, is he going to participate in OTAs? Is he going to be ready for camp? And, of course, nothing to see here. Everything's fine. See, that's the thing. We need to learn from these experiences when they happen. When they say nothing to see here, everything's fine, and it turns out there was something to see there, and then now they're saying there's nothing to see here, everything's fine, and the same people who swallowed the hook back then are swallowing it now.
Yeah.
It's like, folks, when are we going to wake up and realize we're lied to all the time? And, for strategic reasons, but still, we don't take this stuff at face value. So I got the contract.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, addendum G in the Garoppolo contract. G for Jimmy.
Jimmy G.
G for Garoppolo. There it is. And look, to put it in the simplest terms possible, that is a multi-paragraph clause aimed at protecting the Raiders against the possibility that this foot will not allow him to play. And what it protects them against isn't potential responsibility for the future. They never have to pay him. If this foot doesn't get healed, he isn't going to be owed a single penny by the Raiders, including the signing bonus, because that's one of the things that happened when they had to renegotiate this deal and delayed the press conference and sent everyone home, Chris. They took $11.25 million out of his pocket. They took away his signing bonus. The only sure thing when you sign one of these contracts is your signing bonus.
Yeah.
They took it away from him. They moved it into 2023 base salary, and he will not get a penny of it until he passes a physical to the satisfaction of the same Raiders doctor, I assume, that said, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
We got a problem with his metatarsal here. We got a problem with his foot injury that for whatever reason the 49ers didn't see fit to have him undergo surgery for, and it's entirely possible he didn't want it.
Well, and they didn't care. They didn't
now he had to get it.
Yeah.
He had to get it. Well, and we'll talk about that later as to why he didn't do it. There's different theories, but the bottom line is he didn't.
Right.
And the only way he's getting a single dollar from the Raiders is to, number one, have it, and then number two, hope that at the end of the day, the Raiders doctor or whoever it is that's signing off on this says, okay, we're comfortable going forward with this guy's foot surgically repaired. And we always assume everything's going to be fine because what happens? Every surgery is a success. Every rehab's ahead of schedule until it isn't. So this introduces a very significant wrinkle. And it's comical. The number of people that still want to say this is no big deal. This is no big deal. Your guy Lombardi yesterday trying to denigrate me by saying this guy doesn't know anything about football. He's never worked in the NFL. This stuff happens all the time. These injury waivers are all the time. And I posed the question on Twitter, sarcastically but also seriously. How many times does it happen that you take $11.25 million out of a guy's pocket? I don't think that happens all the time, Mike.
No,
I don't think that happens on a regular basis.
Would agree with you.
I've never heard of that happening before, and I've been covering the sport for 23 years. And I'd like to think, Mr. Lombardi, that covering the sport for 23 years counts for a little something. Now I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It does count for something. It does, I mean, Mike, he's a strong personality. He's got great knowledge of football, and he sticks by his guns with certain things.
And he's got two sons that work for the Raiders.
Well, yeah.
He's got two sons that
connected.
Work for the Raiders.
He worked with all those
Slight
people.
bias.
Well, that's where you got to, hey, we all have our bias and connections in life. And, Mike is very in tune with the New England coaching staff and, of course, with Josh McDaniels and the rest of that group being from New England. There's relationships there. So, yeah, he's probably sticking up for them to a degree, right? This is 2 off seasons in a row. One surgery that saved Jimmy Garoppolo and gave him power. Now we're back in a similar situation, and it's kind of screwing him over. I don't know. We'll get into I don't know why he waited so long to have the surgery. I don't get that. the Raiders, right, they did the right thing to not give him $11.75 million in signing bonus. That was the smart thing. What was Jimmy Garoppolo going to do there? He's got nothing to do. Wait, I'm hurt. Nobody else wants me. This is the only
other option.
Right, this is the only seat left at the table. Exactly. But I also will say, how did it get to the Raiders being in a spot where this was their only option? That's where it's a little amazing to me, too. It's just the fact that it got this far down the road, right? And I don't know if the Raiders thought maybe they were going to like one of the quarterbacks in the draft more and they'd have a little flexibility that way. I don't know what shook out exactly there. But for a team that's, what I would say is buttoned up and detailed and on top of all things that I know that New England group is about with Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels as the head coach, I am shocked that they got that far down the road without, and a prior relationship with Jimmy Garoppolo and knowing him from the days in New England, that this wasn't a little bit more of an issue. It seems weird on Jimmy G's part in his camp that maybe this wasn't discussed more with the Raiders or teams leading up to this. And I'm just a little surprised that the Raiders, like I said, got this far down the road with limited options and then basically you're just stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo right now as far as the only option they got.
There's so many layers and levels of this onion, and I spent a lot of time trying to peel it back over the weekend, but it is amazing to think that this contract, this clause, this addendum G, stayed hidden for more than 2 months. When there are people swarming, there is a small army that is constantly growing of NFL insiders and reporters who are tracking down information whenever and wherever they can get it. And this is something that is significant, especially when we consider the player that it involves. Because what's the story? What's his epitaph? What's his tombstone in the NFL? Jimmy G always injured.
Yeah.
He's always injured.
Right.
He's the one quarterback that can't stay healthy. So now on his way through the door, he's got an injury so serious that the Raiders won't give him a signing bonus, that they gave him a signing bonus and yanked it away.
Yeah.
They said psych with his signing bonus because of this injury, in part because they could, because nobody else was calling to try to get Jimmy G at the time, and because they were, I assume. See, it's hard for the Raiders to say nothing to see here now. No big deal. That's what Lombardi was trying to say yesterday. No big deal. No big deal. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. No big deal. Then why'd they take his signing bonus away?
Yeah, injury waivers happen all the time, but the signing bonus is a different thing. Right.
Yeah. And you're right. Look, the reason I think this was hidden, one of the big reasons, because I will guarantee you at least one major national insider, who I won't name, knew about this. I guarantee you. The agent's Don Yee, and the person I'm thinking of has a close personal business at one point relationship with Don Yee. Didn't last long, but there was a business relationship with Don Yee. I think he knew. And this is one of those where if you let it go, it pays dividends in the future. It maintains the flow of the 5-minute heads up on transactions before they get announced, because that's what we got to have. We got to have that flow. We got to know 5 minutes before it's announced. So this is one where I'll just look the other way on it. Well, I firmly believe at least one major national insider knew about it, and didn't serve the audience by sharing the truth with them. That's fine. That's fine, because eventually the truth always comes out.
Right.
Even though it may take a while, the truth always comes out.
I agreed with you there, and it's not always that the insider has to share everything. And I'm not, mad if I don't even know.
You either want to serve your audience or you don't. You want to serve the audience or you don't.
Well,
you either want to tell them stuff that they're going to find out anyway, or you want to tell them stuff that people don't want them to know.
Well, sometimes
I think it's far more interesting to find out the stuff people aren't supposed to know.
I know that, but sometimes, and I have no idea who you're talking about here, but sometimes, there's just more at play. Like you talked about, and there's different layers to all this type of stuff there. So I don't know.
It's quid pro quo, transactional.
Sure.
But that's the thing. I want people to understand that's how the sausage gets made.
But
you'll have people in a position that they know this stuff, just like last year with Tom Brady going to Miami, which is going to come up later in this segment.
Right.
There are people who knew about it. People at ESPN knew about it. But they weren't going to say anything about it. They didn't want to upset any apple carts. They didn't want to piss off Tommy. There was a broader play going on there, I believe. I don't know, but I believe, based upon 23 years of covering the NFL, that people knew about it, but they exercised discretion away from saying anything about it. And because I remember one of the great mysteries last year, and Dan Lebitard brought this up repeatedly. How in the hell are we and Ben Volen the only people in the entire media ecosystem talking about what was the biggest freaking story of the offseason?
Yeah, Lebitard
Tom
and
Brady
gave us a lot of credit
retiring
for
from
that.
the Buccaneers.
Right.
Yeah, and deliberately becoming a part owner of the Dolphins with the goal of becoming the quarterback of the Dolphins, and with Sean Payton as his head coach. How is nobody else talking about that? Well, sometimes people know, and they just choose not to talk about it in order to preserve other interests. So,
all right,
anyway,
so
back to our point.
Well,
I think people knew.
Well, I do.
And they didn't share it with their audience.
Oh, okay, and you know, and again, I think we were seeing why it wasn't shared or totally truthful there. But that's where, like, Mike, you've seen Billy Madison, right? You've seen that movie with Adam Sandler, Business Ethics. Remember that?
Curious where you're going with this.
Man, well, you remember Business Ethics? The thing about Business Ethics is, I mean, doesn't it seem somewhat unethical what Jimmy G has done to two franchises here 2 years in a row? That's kind of where I go back to it. Again, I'm still a little bit of
whoa. This isn't on him. This isn't on him. This is on them. They could have run away and signed somebody else. They didn't have to. They didn't have to go through with this. Now, part of the problem is, and this gets back to the whole way that free agency happens. You've got that 48, 52-hour window where you go out and negotiate the contracts, and the dust settles, and then the physicals happen. And the problem is not that there were a lot of other viable options out there, and we talked about this recently with Devontae Adams. Like, he didn't want Jimmy G. Well, who else is out there?
Yeah.
But the music has stopped and the asses are in the seats by the time you figure out this guy's got a foot injury that hasn't healed and he needs surgery.
Well, isn't it on the agent and the player? Mike, if I was a player,
is your guy healthy? Yeah, he's healthy.
Well,
how's your guy's foot?
That's
it's
BS,
fine.
right?
Yeah, you may be right.
Okay,
I agree with you.
I mean, that's kind of BS.
You brought me around.
All right, I know. You're a sensible guy, right? Like, I was in that situation. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And I understand maybe doing that last year to gain control back from the 49ers so they don't trade you somewhere where you don't want to go. And that's why he kind of had that surgery at the last second or whatever else so he could kind of pull things back in his direction. That's maybe a little more understandable. This one is one where, I do look at it as, it's on the agent and the player to be a little honest here. Hey, team, we want to give you a ton of money to lead our franchise. Oh, yeah, sure, great. And then you get in the door and go, I'm actually not healthy. I can't play. Oh, okay, great.
Or he doesn't even say it. Or he doesn't say it. The doctor's like looking at the foot saying, something's up with this foot.
That's what I'm saying.
What's wrong with this foot? Nothing. I'm fine. I'm fine.
And we'll see where this goes. And I'm not panicked yet. And but this is certainly weird. And I'm a little bit like, hey, I think it'll still work out and all that. But damn. That's got to be a little bit on Don Yee and Jimmy Garoppolo there, a little, to do that to the Raiders and put them in that situation. I think that's not, what I would call ethical in the business world of the NFL.
Well, and look at it this way. If the Raiders knew what they later learned,
exactly,
it wouldn't have been an $11.25 million signing.
Exactly, and they would have had other options.
Don Yee said something to the Raiders that got them to think his guy is fine.
Exactly.
And this gets back to why it was kept under wraps. It makes everybody look bad. It makes everybody look negligent or arguably unethical. And Jimmy G's got this weird thing
where he doesn't
this
talk.
Is my opinion. I'm not stating facts.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't like confrontation.
Right.
So he does this passive-aggressive stuff instead. Like, I'm going to wait to have surgery. I'm going to do, and I'm not going to come out and say anything. I'm just going to kind of do things, and then you have to figure out later how it all fits together. And, it happened last year with the shoulder surgery that the 49ers didn't even know he was having. And now this year. Now, look, it could just be that the guy doesn't want to have surgery. And for that, I can't blame him. We have become desensitized as media and fans to the idea that these are surgical procedures, minor surgery. I used to say this years ago, you know what minor surgery is? Minor surgery is surgery not being performed on you or someone you care about. That's right. Minor surgery.
That's right.
Because there is no minor surgery.
That's right.
There is no minor surgery. Anytime that your body is being torn open, even delicately with a scalpel, and it's exposed to light and air and potential infection and stuff is going on and they're putting things in or they're taking things out or they're moving stuff around, that is not some trivial matter. That's a big deal. And maybe Garoppolo just didn't want to do it. And I go back to December. The first report from Adam Schefter of ESPN, who's plugged in with Don Yee, but may or may not be the person I was referring to earlier. I'm not making that connection presently. But he reported no surgery for Garoppolo, 7 to 8 week turnaround. And then there was that question, well, was Garoppolo going to be ready? Is he going to be back? Will he be back for the Super Bowl?
Right.
As if they were going to bench Brock Purdy if they got to the Super Bowl. The only way he was playing in the Super Bowl is if they'd won it after Purdy injured his elbow against the Eagles. If they'd somehow won the game with Josh Johnson, then you go with Garoppolo if he's able to go. But, I mean, from the 49ers perspective, he's not coming back next year anyway. Like, what do we do? Well, let him do whatever he wants to do. Does he need surgery? Probably does. But if he doesn't want it, who cares? He's not playing for us next year anyway.
Right. That's the point I was trying to make before. That's where it's like they didn't care this year. This one, they definitely didn't care. Do whatever you got to do. You're not in our plans. We're not bringing you back. So whatever you feel like is necessary. All right, so that's fine that they let him do that, but where I have a problem with it right now a little bit is what we're explaining. At what point did he know that there was a problem, right? At what point was he going to tell the Raiders? It's one thing if he felt like, wait, I was just working out yesterday and moving around and doing great, and, well, wait, now you're seeing something you don't like. I felt great, but was it more of, wait, I kind of know something's wrong here, and I'm going to just kind of wait until somebody calls me out, or the first day I have to be on the field and just go, ooh, my foot doesn't feel right, and then open up, Pandora's box on what we should do. And that's how it kind of smells right now a little bit, and that's what, I don't love that aspect for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's a low blow, and he's put the Raiders in a really tough spot where like you said, they're not only trying to protect themselves, but they're trying to also protect the guy they think is going to be their quarterback and not make him look like a jerk and look like, he screwed them over that way too.
Yeah, you're right. And again, they have a mutual interest here.
Yeah.
They want to make him look better, and they want to make themselves look not inept, because if he can't play, it's Brian Hoyer, who has had a respectable career, but he's not the guy you're putting all your eggs in his basket.
Right.
And then you've got Aiden O'Connell, who they drafted with the final selection in round 4 when all these other guys were out there. He was the 8th quarterback taken in the 2023 draft, and maybe they know something the rest of us don't about Aiden O'Connell, but it just feels like they don't have a viable plan B when they knew that their plan A was not what they expected it to be at the time that they negotiated the contract and agreed to give him that bonus. So, hey, look, it may just be a simple case of maybe he thought he was fine. That, an idea that I just had as we're talking this through, and now I'm warming up to the idea of doing the show for 2 hours in the morning because it's useful to me for the rest of the day. It gives me ideas, things to follow up on and things to write about. They do exit physicals at the end of every year, even if you're going to be a free agent, don't they? He would have had to have passed an exit physical. Wouldn't there be a record somewhere of his exit physical from the 49ers?
Now, it's not always in depth. Right. It's not always in depth.
Yeah, I mean, is it possible they're like, he's good to go?
Right.
Yeah, he's good to go. Get him out of here.
Exactly.
49ers say he's fine, and then the Raiders say, no, he's not.
Well, and at the end of the season, physical at times, and like in that situation like that, especially like what you're saying. Wait, he seems fine, and then the player tells you he's fine. And, they're not, because the contract's over and there's no more financial agreement, they don't do maybe the digging in there like they would if they were about to make a big investment. And then, of course, it comes time. But I think, like you said there and what I said before, what I want to know is where was he at before he signed this contract with the Raiders? Did he feel like, hey, wait, I feel like I'm okay, and then the doctor pushes and prods on a little and goes, wait, no, there's a little issue here. You have a strength issue or whatever? Or was this one where he walked in, knew the problem, knew there was an issue, and was just waiting for it to get called out a little bit, but, was going to have that contract in hand already and make a little power play? And that, to me, would be wrong, and you screwed over the Raiders if that's the case.
I'm texting right now with somebody who knows the answer to the question, and since he was an unrestricted free agent, there wouldn't have been an exit physical like there would be for somebody who's coming back the next year. So, and even then, without an exit physical, you'd want scans, you'd want medical reports. They were continuing, I assume, to monitor the condition week in and week out, 7 to 8 weeks of rehab. He was doing the rehab.
Right.
I assume the Raiders would have looked at all of that before they commit to the $11.25 million, unless they did just take Don Yee's word for it. Regardless, it's a bad look for everyone. That's why it was hidden. No one in that relationship had any reason to share the information. See, when somebody signs a contract, the agent always has the motivation and the incentive to leak the numbers. 99.99% of the time, maybe even more than that, when we see the contractual numbers reported, they are coming from the agent, especially because a lot of the times the contractual numbers that are reported initially are wrong. They're inflated. They make the agent look better, and nobody seems to care about that other than me, because I'm the conspiracy theorist who cares about what the actual truth is and what the deal is really worth, not what the agent wants everyone to think it's worth. But the agent's the one who talks then. In a situation like this, there's no one with a motivation to brag. This is one where it's all in our best interest to keep this quiet. Let's keep this quiet. We don't need people knowing about this. We don't need people knowing that I lost my signing bonus. We don't need people knowing that this went sideways and almost did implode. And but for Jimmy G yielding his $11.25 million signing bonus and agreeing to this long and lengthy waiver, he wouldn't have even gotten a contract from the Raiders. We wouldn't have done the press conference at all. It's not a matter of being delayed. It's canceled. It's never happening. Go away and don't come back. That's it. Who's our quarterback? Good question. I don't know. Tom Brady? I don't know. So, look, it's a bad look for everyone. That's why it took 2 months for it to come out. And without him having the foot surgery and me having a few days to let this stuff ruminate and percolate, it's like, hey, let's go look at his let's look at the contract. Let's go to the actual evidence of what this relationship is, and there it was. The answers that we didn't even realize we should have been looking for.
No, yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. It is, and it's amazing it's been kept quiet this long. But now with this, I mean, there's going to be a spotlight. It's going to add pressure, the Raiders in this situation, and of course Jimmy Garoppolo, when we're all going to be questioning it. And when is he going to get back on the field? When is it going to be that he's, totally healthy and cleared for training camp, whatever? Again, these are issues that have come along a lot with Jimmy Garoppolo. We know that, like you said, there's an injury history there. And then it's a crucial year for the Raiders. It's a crucial year. It's a big year. They're trying to turn the corner here and flip the franchise over and kind of got things going in the right direction, but got rid of a franchise quarterback. And now we're stuck in this situation. Yeah, it doesn't look good on them right now with how this is all playing out.
And you're right. It does intensify everything as it relates to where the Raiders are, what's happening, and what their plans are in the event that Garoppolo either doesn't pass the physical. I mean, look, I would say it's unlikely that we're going to get to the point where he can't pass a physical.
Right.
But the mechanism is in place for them to say via con Dios to Jimmy Garoppolo if he can't, and never pay him a dime. I mean, that would be unprecedented as far as I know.
As far as I can recall. Like
for an NFL contract in the age of free agency where a guy gets signed, comes through the door, has surgery to rectify a pre-existing condition that the team apparently didn't know about when they negotiated the contract, so they had to renegotiate the contract. He gets surgery. It never heals to the satisfaction of the team, and they say, see you later, and they never pay him a penny. That, to me, is something that I don't think has ever happened before, and I'm not saying it's going to happen now, but the pieces are in place for it to happen.
Yeah, no, agreed. They are, and I don't remember it ever happening. I mean, contracts being pulled, period, is a rare thing. Josh Norman having the franchise tag pulled from him is like the only significant one I can ever remember, so I'm with you there, Mike.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.